Hi, today we're going to be talking about the nuts and bolts of positioning and latching your newborn. So let's get started. I'm Barbara Kalmen. I'm an IBCLC and an RN. And here we go. It's zip learning breastfeeding. We've got to get it all done. So nuts and bolts, what you need to know. Well, the first feed is often the time that you will accomplish your first feeding. So the contact with your baby is awesomely important, and you're definitely going to want that. As long as mama's okay, baby's okay, then contact right away, which is skin to skin contact. We're going to be calling that STS, and you may see that later on. So very important to do that as soon as you can within 5 minutes, and then continuing with the skin to skin until the completion of that first feeding, or at least the first hour. So often it might be longer than that, and you just don't want to rush the process. You've got to let baby kind of get used to being earth bound and figuring out where its feeding is. So be patient in that process. When will it happen? Well, if you've had a rather uneventful labor, it's probably going to happen in the first hour. If there have been some complications, maybe a longer pushing time, many things can get involved in there. And so, especially if you have an epidural, often it's the second hour that baby actually finally gets that latch on. So if somebody's wanting to take baby away, say no. Say, I want to keep going until baby accomplishes that first feeding. What will it look like? Well, you're going to see some examples today. I'm going to kind of take you through what a lot of different babies look like when they're accomplishing that first feed. And finally, how are you going to know if your baby's doing well? Well, we're going to point out what we see as we go through some of these videos, and that may help you when you have your baby to know, is it going well, and when do I need to reach out for help if it is not? So let's talk about the breast crawl. The breast crawl is when the baby comes onto you right away, and you just kind of lean back, relax, let the baby sit there. Nuzzle between your breasts. And then you're going to notice that the baby actually goes through 9 stages. So that first one is the birth cry. So we want them to cry and make some efforts to aerate their lungs. And then the second stage the baby goes through is relaxation. So they get very quiet and they just kind of like, whew, I'm here. So they're going to go through that, and then the next one is an awakening, as they're beginning to open their eyes. And once that begins, then you'll see some activity. And that's probably the stage that this baby is at. We see a little bit of eye opening, maybe a little bit of movement of hand. The mouth is beginning to open. Is this baby ready to feed? No, this baby's not ready to feed. This baby's just ready to start its activity level. So the next thing that it's going to go through, it rests. You thought it was going to happen, and then all of a sudden the baby looks like it's taking a nap. This is hard work for a baby. So they will have activity, resting, and then all of a sudden they actually start to crawl. So it is the top portion of their feet that they will use to almost push off of to propel themselves up towards the breast and the nipple. And they'll identify which one that they want to go to. And you'll think, oh yeah, look, baby's going there. And then all of a sudden, they're back to resting again. A lot of effort. And so you'll see it going kind of back and forth. And this is kind of almost like a dance that's going on with your baby. And then you'll finally see the baby actually gets to the nipple. And so the first thing that they need to do is to get familiar with your nipple. They've never seen your nipple before. They don't know if it's flat or if it's a big pokey outy one, or if it needs a little stimulation to be able to stand up tall. They will get familiar with it. And so they'll do a little mouthing of the nipple. They may touch it with their hands. They may then bring their hands to their nose saying, oh, that's the scent that I'm looking for. And then finally, the baby will actually suckle, latch on and suckle. And then after they've had a nice period of suckling, then they sleep. So those are the 9 stages that you're going to be looking for. And you want to let the baby complete the entire cycle, and especially before intervention happens and the baby goes off to be weighed or anything else done with the baby, because the whole mantra of wait for the wait, that's what we want to do, so that the baby gets a chance to complete these 9 stages. If the baby is interrupted before it completes the 9 stages, it has to start again back at the beginning, and so they get into that fussy period and they're crying and things are not right. So let the baby finish the cycle first, and then help when baby is truly ready. So when you're finally seeing that the baby has gone through that familiarization, is obviously looking for the nipple, then if you want to help a little bit, it shouldn't take a whole lot of help to get that baby to go ahead and latch. And then if no feeding happens, remain skin to skin. Go into that second hour, occasionally even into the third hour. The weight's not going to change that much in the first 3 hours. And then a lot of times it may work just to hand express out a little bit of your milk, your colostrum, and that can often entice the baby. You can actually take a little drop and put it on baby's tongue or on baby's lips, and that might say, oh, this is where I want to go. Things you want to look for when the baby is latching on. One, that all of the nipple and as much of the dark area around the nipple or the areola is in the baby's mouth. If they're just taking the nipple, they can make you sore and they don't get as much milk. So we want really it going in so that it's very far in, just like you're seeing on the picture there. You want the lips flanged out. Often the upper lip doesn't flange, but a lot. Just a little bit, it should be flipped up. But the lower lip should be flanged down by a whole bunch. And that tells you the baby's allowed that breast to come all the way in. Their tongue should actually be able to go over their lower gum, because they need to use that to bring the nipple in, to be able to milk the breast, milk the nipple to get their milk. And the baby stays on the breast. The baby doesn't keep popping off and then trying to access it again, doing a few sucks and popping off. That's telling me that something's going on and probably the baby needs to be evaluated. And that there is an absence of pain. It shouldn't hurt for the baby to latch on and to suckle. So if there is pain, things need to be looked at. Are there restrictions in the baby's mouth that's causing the pain? Are there other things that were going on with the baby? Did the baby maybe have a loop of cord around the neck that's making the baby feel uncomfortable to do the right kind of sucking to be able to get its milk? And then you want to listen and watch for milk transfer or swallowing. This is kind of a little sound that occurs. Now in the beginning, there's lots more sucking than there is swallowing when there's just colostrum, especially in that first day with suckling. But you're going to hear it more and more, so you want to be listening to it. Turn off the TVs and all the other hoop-ta-ha that might be going around. Have people be a little bit quieter so you can really listen for your baby. First feeding. Okay, this baby happens to be early in the world, a whole month early. And I'd call this a fair feeding. The baby is latched on, the baby's making some sucking motions, but it's not real vigorous. You can see some relaxation of baby's hands as baby is feeding. Let's watch. And I'm hearing some sucking in there. It doesn't take much stimulation from mom to get the baby to continue to do sucking. So that, fair feeding. The next baby is going to do lots of sucking, but basically there's no transfer. So when the baby takes milk in, it will change from this rapid fire sucking to a drop of the chin as they're accessing some milk and then going back to that rapid fire sucking again. That's what you're looking for. And so this baby's going to give you lots and lots of sucking, but not a lot of swallowing happening. And this is a term baby. And these are very short, tight little sucks. And a nice run of suck. That's actually a little bit better than the previous baby. So here's a baby that's a term baby, but is unsettled at the breast. Let's see if I can get it to run. There we go. So you can see the baby's kind of fussing and crying. He's definitely in familiarization with the nipple, but he says, I just can't seem to get it in there and get latched on. Now, this particular baby ended up having a tongue tie that really affected his ability to latch on and to suckle. Not real happy. Now here's an unsettled baby that was actually just about 3.5 weeks early. You see how he kind of jumps? That's that crawling feature to get him up to where he wants to be for that nipple. Mom's trying to create a little bit of an airway with her hand, but he's an unhappy little guy. Trying to make a few sucks, and then he kind of pops off and tries again and tries again.
Do you want to come up more forward? Yes.
Mom decided she wanted to change her position a little bit and see if she would be able to help him with his latch on. And often as moms, we bring that. We kind of look to say, maybe my baby needs just a wee bit of help.
What I do, flipping so he's almost like it's sticking in his nose. Just let him crawl up for it.
So sometimes instead of actually putting the nipple directly in the baby's mouth, lifting the nipple up so that when baby goes on, I've got a lovely puppet here that I think might work for me. Instead of putting the nipple straight on in for the baby, we can actually put the nipple up towards the baby's nose. They get actually a sense of the smell, and they will open their mouths to lift to go on to the breast. Again, unsettled baby. Sometimes we just have to wait until they can bring their best effort at the feeding. Now here's a baby that can give all of you hope, and this is a term baby, and this is a very, very skilled baby. You can watch the baby's hands as the baby actually uses them to bring the breast towards him. And watch his chin as the chin drops down again. Now he popped off, and you see him using his hands to get that nipple again, but he needed to sneeze. So you're going to watch him sneeze here in just a second. He says, I feel that nipple. Nope, there's a sneeze one, there's a sneeze two. Okay. And now mom does help a little bit, and all she does is just kind of maneuver her arm just a wee bit that brings the baby to the nipple there. He feels it, and there he goes. So now let's watch his chin and watch how he's making these really long sucks. They're not short little things. That chin every once in a while is just really pulling down. And that says he's tasting milk. And she had a great milk supply at the time of birth. And this baby's only 30 minutes old. So this is right there. But his older brother was still breastfeeding him at the time that little Benjamin was born. And so there was an active flow of milk happening, even though it was colostrum. And if one nurses a child throughout the pregnancy, it will still change over to colostrum, usually about the 4th month. So let's talk about those feeding cues. What you will see when baby is looking to eat. They'll be sucking on their tongues or lips during sleep. They move their arms and hands towards their mouth. They may even just be fussing or fidgeting while they're sleeping. They may turn their heads from side to side, usually opening their mouth as they're looking for a nipple. Lip smacking, mouth opening, hand-mouth motions, all of those. The things that you see here are actually all cues that a baby is ready to feed. Now, at the very bottom, you see crying, and crying really is a late cue. If we wait until the baby is crying, then some babies just can't organize it up to be able to latch on and to be able to accomplish a feeding. So some babies, that get to the crying stage, maybe because we had to go to the bathroom or something else was going on, or we were in such a deep sleep, we just couldn't wake up to get to baby before crying started. You may have to calm the baby down and then bring the baby to the breast so that baby can latch on. What are the signs of being done? Well, falling asleep. But if the baby is only fed for 2 minutes, a feeding didn't really happen. It was a practice feed. But we want to be watching to make sure that the baby's actually accomplishing the feeding, that we're seeing some little drops of the colostrum going in there. So they should actually relax their whole bodies. We have open fists, especially on the baby on the left there, relaxed foreheads on both these babies. The arm and hand, even their elbows will be very relaxed. And you can put the baby down. And that's actually a good technique. If you think your baby's done, try putting baby down for its sleep. And if the baby says, oh no, I was just resting, I'm ready to feed more, baby's going to start giving you those cues. And then it's time to pick baby up and let's finish doing the feeding. So let's talk about day 1 and what your expectations are for day 1. Baby's going to have lots of sleeping going on. Hopefully you're getting some sleep too. Hardest thing to do in the hospital, lots of interruptions and stuff. Work with a nurse who is your nurse to flag your door so that you can get little breaks where you actually can take some sleep time. And being able to sleep when baby's sleeping, very, very helpful. And then you want to continue that on at home too. So you're not trying to accomplish other things and having those happen when baby's sleeping, because baby's not going to give you any sleep time. So when he's sleeping, you need to be doing the sleeping. And then frequent feeds. The first day, sometimes they won't do as many as we want them to, which really is 8 to 12 or more feedings, but at least probably 6 to 12 feedings. Now, some are real frequent feeders, and you think, oh my gosh, this baby will never stop sucking. He's just exercising their jaws so that they build good muscles there. So they may be a little bit less than that, but if you can get in 6 feedings, you're doing really good on that first day. And at least 1 pee. We've got to have some pee happening. If mom's had an IV during labor, they probably will pee more. That's because some of that fluid gets into baby circulation. Baby comes out, they cut the cord. Now baby's got to get rid of that extra fluid, and that's going to come out as pee. And at least 1 poop. That tells us the pipes are open. We don't want that poop staying in there. We want it moving out. The colostrum actually works as a laxative for clearing it out. So the more colostrum we can get into the baby, the more that their poop will come on out. And that helps them to reduce the amount of jaundice that they're going to have. And then there are all kinds of weird things you can see on day 1. Oh, oh, sometimes they're spitting up, sometimes they gag, sometimes they belch, sound like they can belly up to the bar with these great big old belches. Their system is just learning to take food in and move it through in the manner that we tend to do that. So expect that some of that stuff may happen. So the timing, length of feedings, these are the things that moms often want to know about. Well, try not to watch the clock. The baby's never seen a clock. Instead, watch your baby. For any of those feeding cues, pick your baby up, feed your baby, and then looking for the signs that your baby is done. It's really learning to read your baby in the beginning. But don't think your baby really wants to sleep a long time. It just may be that you're missing some maybe very subtle cues that the baby is giving you. So how does a feeding go? Well, a baby needs to be allowed to finish the first side first. So that's very important. Don't set a timer and say, now it's time to go to the other side. Really watch the baby. The baby will give you signs that the baby's tired, and baby will drift off to sleep and then maybe let go of the nipple or just go to sleep on the nipple. But at that point, go ahead and try to burp. See if baby's taken any air out. It kind of gives that baby a chance to rest. These are muscle groups that get really tired, and so we give it a little bit of rest, and then always offer the second side. Sometimes it's that movement of going over to the other side and getting settled with your positioning that often might wake baby up, and then they're willing to do and finish that second side. Sometimes the second side may be not as long as the first side is. Some feedings may be short. You may see a 5 or a 10-minute feeding, but many feedings really probably should be lasting 30 or 45 minutes. This again is in the first few days because that's really what's firing up your milk supply. They're not getting a lot of volume, and that is normal. They're not supposed to. We're getting a chance to treat their gut to this lovely prebiotics, which is what is in your milk, to establish your gut flora in your baby, which is your baby's immune system. So we want that for your baby. And then baby may want to feed again in 30 minutes and act like it's never been fed before. Oh my gosh. Or it might not be for 1, maybe 3 hours. I don't like them to go longer than 3 hours. So we're going to talk about that too. Baby should be able to suck 10 or 15 times. So that baby you saw in the clip that was doing lots and lots of sucking was doing a good job on that. It told me that the baby did have development of its jaws. It wasn't stressed out from being born, but it wasn't moving a whole lot of milk. And this particular mom from a previous baby had trouble with her milk supply, really bringing it up to volume. So we were just seeing the effects of how that mother made milk. But the baby should suck 10, 15 times before pausing. It's probably a several second pause. And then starts again, maybe with a little bit of encouragement from mom, but it doesn't take a lot to get a baby going again. But a baby that only sucks twice, or maybe sucks 4 or maybe 5 times and stops, is not sending a signal good enough up to the brain so that you get the amount of hormones coming down to make the milk and to push it down. So we're really helping the baby try to stay awake, to keep that sucking going. And sometimes they just need time for that to happen. What does one do in the meantime? It's probably doing some hand expression. Get some drops of colostrum out. Get it into baby. Even if you're just swiping it off the nipple and then just placing it in baby's mouth. So let's talk about what's too long to wait, between feedings. Well, if a baby goes longer than 3 hours, they're going to have a really hard time making that 8 to 12 times in 24 hours. So I don't like them to go longer than 3 hours without something going on. That something might be, you remembering, I need to accomplish 8 or more in 24 for your mantra there. And then bring them back into the kitchen. Just like when you go into the kitchen and food is being cooked, you want to eat. Babies do also. So bringing them back skin to skin, take their clothes off of them just down to a diaper so that they get a chance to be up against you. This is really good stimulus for your breasts to start making milk to do that also. And then hand express out some drops, entice baby. All of a sudden, sometimes they get going and start thinking about feeding. Movement is incredibly important for babies. There are some videos that talk about rhythmic movement for breastfeeding difficulties, which is a really good YouTube video that is very helpful for something that a parent could do to help a baby organize their reflexes so that they're ready to wake up and then take in a feeding. So it is all about the latch, and the better that we can get the latch and the more of the nipple that we get into the baby's mouth instead of just accepting the end of the nipple actually does a better stimulation of the breast, and the baby will actually get more milk for that. So again, trying to get that nipple so that it's pointing up towards baby's nose is going to be really important so the baby opens up wide and actually is able to take it in. So you're actually seeing on the picture there a rather asymmetrical latch. You're almost scooting the bottom part of the breast in first and rockering it in. You will get it in deeper. That's going to be much more comfortable for you and a lot more milk for baby. So positioning, everybody wants to know, how am I supposed to hold my baby? Well, let baby take the lead. And right away, this position is like my #1 go-to, and it's called laid back breastfeeding. Letting baby take control on what's going on, and especially at that first feeding, really important. And so it's going to work really well for you after birth. You're not laying totally flat, but you're laying back for sure. And then being able to stabilize baby on your chest. I have my baby here. So you're getting kind of hands bent up in front of baby. The head will kind of naturally turn easier one side to the other. And then using your hands to stabilize baby. I don't hold them so that they can't move, but if you put a hand at their back and maybe a hand on their bottom, they're going to be able to actually lift their heads up and search around for the nipple and then be able to actually latch on. My second position of choice, my #2 to go to, is the cross cradle hold. And this is very helpful in the first couple of days of the baby's life. When the baby's often really sleepy, the mom may actually take the lead on the feedings at this point to help baby. And for some babies, they will lose the nipple if it is not supported. Now, if you've got bigger size breasts and baby gets latched on, but baby doesn't have a lot of muscles in its cheeks to hold on, it loses that nipple, maybe pops off or goes to just being able to attach to the nipple. So doing what this mom on the very left is doing and actually sandwiching in that breast so that then when baby comes on and the baby needs to actually go on in the same manner that it is sandwiched down. So we don't try to take a sandwich and squish it down and push it in this way because we get mustard up our nose. So we want to sandwich down so that the nipple goes in actually deeper. And then instead, and as soon as you let go, you know your breast is going to go back to its original shape. And that's why the mom on the left-hand side is continuing to hold. And you can just imagine that that gives a little more push of that nipple in holding it, and it keeps it a little bit deeper into baby's mouth. So if the baby is losing the breast frequently popping off, this is the position to hold. The other thing that it helps in stability, you'll see the mom on the far right is actually using her arm to kind of wrap her baby around her middle. And that really helps in the organization of the baby. So then they can pay attention to what their mouth is doing and do a little bit more of an effective feed. #3 is the football hold, or sometimes called the clutch hold. Moms who've had a cesarean birth and maybe have a tender tummy, this can be very helpful. Those moms with larger breasts, they can't see what's going on to have the baby in front of them, sometimes do very well to do the football hold. So you can always try that as an option, especially if you need to see what's happening with the latch. You're concerned maybe that baby is rolling in a lower lip and you want to see what's going on, this could be the position for you. Number 4, side lying position. Very helpful if your bottom's sore from giving birth or you just need to rest. You need to be in a comfortable position. It can be helpful with the larger breasts that you can almost set the breast on the bed and then be able to just deal with the part of the breast that has the nipple to be able to rocker it into baby's mouth. Number 5 would be the cradle hold, and that is great for older babies or those that are real well organized in their feeding. So this may be your go-to position as time goes on, but it takes a very organized baby for them to use a cradle hold in the beginning. So hold this one maybe for a little later. Okay, here we have another baby. This is day 2, up to the time that your milk is up to volume.
Okay, interesting.
So what I want you to really look at is watch this baby's chin. This baby is a lot more alert, which is very common on that second day. They tend to be more interested in feeding. The length of the feeding is often more consistent. So maybe 20, 30 minutes, maybe on each side for a feeding. And it may depend on how much volume that they're moving as to how long that they're going to go. But it's a good sign when your baby is interested in wanting to latch on and continue on with the feeding. You actually see on this particular baby, baby's really paying attention. It takes a lot of energy to hold your fingers like that, while you're doing all this sucking going on. Not a lot of milk movement at this stage for this mom, so we didn't see a lot of the real long draws in, but just every once in a while. And she was also doing some hand expression and just seeing some drops of milk at that point. But that was just at the beginning of the second day. So they will be a little bit more alert, but beware of the second night that they're alive. It's crazy. We often call this the second night syndrome. And they want to feed, and especially in the dark hours, all night long. So really important, before you have that second night, get an extra nap during the day. That is a lifesaver because it is going to be a bit crazy. And often what they're doing is trying to push that milk to come on in. And then the most important thing from day 2 onward is to really watch their output. Their output will tell you if they're doing okay. Sometimes with the peas that you'll notice almost like somebody took a brick and ground it up to dust. Some moms will say, oh, I think the baby's having bleeding. But you look at it and say, well, that's not red. It's more of an orangey color. And sometimes that's residual on their bladder if they're not getting a lot of volume coming in. We can tolerate that maybe for 1 or 2 peas, but we're really looking to make sure that baby is getting more and more volume happening. And that's going to really rinse everything out so that we don't see that, that residual in on the diaper. So we're paying attention to output, and we'll talk more about that. So goals that promote success. Well, breastfeeding within the first hour of birth, really important. And then start learning your baby's cues. Learn to read your baby and what your baby's trying to tell you. Feed your baby 8 to 12 times in 24, 8 or more in 24, the mantra. Do lots of skin to skin, and not just right with the first feeding, but throughout the early weeks. Strip baby down to the diaper, put the baby in right up against your breast, even without a bra on, because you want stimulation. It seems like the milk glands for making the milk are more receptive to that, as there is skin-to-skin contact between mother and baby. And sleep when your baby sleeps, so important. And again, letting baby take the lead as long as they're willing to lead. If they don't lead in the right direction, you make sure you help them and get some help for you. So one of the most common things that I have moms ask me about, is baby getting enough? Usually it's about day 3. Everybody starts worrying, is the baby getting enough? Well, their diaper should equal their day of life the first week. So that means on day 4, the baby should have 4 wet diapers. On day 2, the baby should have 2 wet diapers. You see where I'm going with this. And then usually by the end of the first week, it averages out between 6 and 8 wet diapers a day. And you should be seeing poo every day. That's a sign I've got plenty of calories. I can let some of this go. They're going to be eating 8 to 12 times in 24 hours. The baby's going to be waking up to feed. The babies that start sleeping long periods are not sending the good signal to the breast. And those are the babies, bring them back into your kitchen, bring them right up to you skin to skin. The baby should be satisfied and content after feeds. And the breast should feel less full after the feeding than when you started the feeding out. And that's because your milk is coming in, usually between that 2nd and that 3rd day of life. And then we look at weight loss, so not losing more than 7% of their body weight from the time of birth. So it is real important that you do get follow-ups, so somebody is weighing your baby and being able to determine that. So now we're going to turn it over to questions, and we will see what sort of questions that you have. And so I'm going to leave it at here, and we'll see what questions come in.